Okay, cool. I've never actually tried that clap thing before, but I've seen it used, and I feel like it'll be okay. We'll figure it out.
Definitely.
So, Bee, hello.
Hello. I am Bee.
You are, yes. Bee is an individual I've met on my third week out here in the van life. I met her in a static dance, actually, which was a wonderful experience that I definitely, before we go into at some other point, in like a separate video, of course. But the main reason I want to talk to Bee today was because you have a really usually like frowned upon career. You know what I'm talking about? So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So I am a sex worker. I do OnlyFans and stuff, and I first started through like webcam modeling. But as you can tell, I'm not really like the type that you would think is happening with that. Like, I have really started to dive into my hippie roots, and with a lot of minimalism and a lot of the opposite of what my work brings, which is like a lot of surface level connections. And what is the word I'm looking for? It's like just the aesthetics of things and the way that things look. That word that I can't think of at the moment.
You're talking about surface level of like being
And like how things look.
cosmetics?
Yeah. That's not the one I'm looking for specifically.
What's it start with? Any idea? That's alright.
Usually I'm really good about it, but I'm not right now.
That's alright.
Let me see if I can figure out what word it is.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So as you guys can see, we are currently under two beautiful trees that are blessing us with shade, and we're in Washington Park, Denver. Right?
Yes.
Go for it.
Superficial.
Oh, word. That's something so you're kind of saying like that's something you come across a lot in your work?
Yes.
Right.
And it's a lot of what is around. It's just the superficiality of everything that's going on, because it's like a more luxurious look on things, a more luxurious life is what is like talked about with it. But at the same time, like, I just like to have what I have and be a little dirt rat.
A little dirt rat? Nice. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So, you mentioned you started doing webcamming, right? What in the so take me back to like square one, like if you're willing to share, what like really piqued your interest into like getting into sex work?
So I was like super horny, like before I even turned 18. And I had found out about like webcam modeling because I heard that people just like, you know, touch themselves on the internet in their own home. No one else was there, and they just make money that way. And I was like, I want to do that. That sounds epic.
Right.
I would love to do that. And so then when I turned 18, like I saved up for a laptop because I was working like a server job, and then I started doing that. And so like I was still in school, you know, I was 18, and then in the morning, like I would do that. And then when I got home, I would like film my own stuff, and then I just like accumulated this stuff. I figured out where I could post it and where I could sell it and how to like really maximize that profit.
Right.
I wanted to go into marketing as far as schooling went until I talked to a lot of people who were in marketing, and they were like, honestly, you'll get more information just doing it yourself as opposed to going to school to learn how to do it. Because it's a lot of trial and error, and it's a lot of like just figuring out how to do it with the other information that's present, because they can teach you so much in marketing school,
Right.
and they will, but also it's mostly about applying it in real life and seeing what works, you know, like throwing shit against the wall, seeing what sticks.
Right. And so was there any struggle at all then, like as far as like, was there a difference in marketing specifically for like what you were doing versus like how Best Buy can advertise online? Like, was it difficult to find those places that you could be and exist? You know what I'm saying?
It wasn't difficult for me because I ended up just like getting really lucky with those things. My first exposure to a webcam site was Chatterbait, and I had watched like a bunch of other people's cams and stuff.
Right.
And so I saw how they did it, and there was already a lot of online community for that. So then by the time I did make my Twitter, then other people were all talking about different sites and making like documents and like tips for each other on how to like survive in this industry and how to thrive in this industry.
So there's like a legitimate fucking community that's serve each other. That's really dope.
Oh yeah, and I'm still friends with a lot of them, and like one of them is my best friend of all time of like 6 years, and we met through the industry as well.
Gnarly. Mm-hmm. So you guys are even like, have you connected in person then or not?
Yeah, we've been friends for 6 years.
Word. Holy shit.
She's my bestie. We go to Boulder Static Dance. She was there that night too.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
What was her name?
Raven. And Coral. And Cassie.
Oh, that doesn't ring a bell. But
they were the ones who made the altar, and we're doing the gold painting with the blue lotus.
Oh, so, what's his name?
Danny's partner.
Yeah, right. Oh, cool. Hell yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Gnarly. So, you were horny, young.
Yeah.
A lot. So that led you into this realm of like sex. Like, is sex work the right word for it?
Yeah.
Cool. So, So like, have you specifically like with your family and or friends? Have you faced any like friction there? Controversy. You know what I'm saying?
I have had some friends who I'm not friends with anymore. Like, I love them, but we're not connected because they were unable to see me as a person.
Right.
And they only saw me for my work, and they were like, I just can't be friends with you because I can only see you as an object. And I was like, oh, wow, that's awful. That only happened like once, that was a particular conversation where someone like did cut off contact because of those things.
Wow.
Where it gets a little sticky with some of my other friends who didn't say that outright is that they'd be very jealous. And so that jealousy would feed into like dislike for me because they wanted to do something like that, or they wanted to be liberated in that way, and they either didn't allow themselves to, or it's like they had these other thoughts that they couldn't do that and still do what it is that they were doing, or there's a lot of pressure to be a specific way and to conform, especially when it comes to sex, about like you can't do this thing and do this thing, like you're not allowed to do both.
Right.
And so some people like really shied away from that idea.
Right.
And some people were just like really, they're scared. They don't know.
Right. And I like, it's such, I can to some extent like understand the closed mind to it and like the jealousy kind of thing, because like just simply because in regards to like societal standards, it is such a like frowned upon thing to talk about. But at the same time, like, I think human beings should be human beings, bro, and do whatever you want to.
It's been around, sex work itself has been around, like, since the very beginning of time. And, like, people would do that all the time anyway.
Right.
And they still never allowed it. Ugh, these mosquitoes, man.
Need more spray?
No, it's okay. I try not to use too much of it, because it smells really weird.
It's a little danky.
And it's not, like, very natural at all.
Surprisingly, I have not actually even gotten fucked with it all. Have you gotten bit already?
Adjust with the pash.
Word.
I love my pash. And it sometimes makes me feel like a little grandma because I'm just like,
I dig the colors.
Yeah, my pashminas are always rainbow, but I was gifted this one and it was red, and I was like, this is weird. But my best friend Raven, her colors are red, and she has a red pashmina infused blue. Huh. And mine was just entirely red, and it was one that was gifted to me off the shoulders of a new friend at Red Rocks.
Word.
And he was just like, this is for you, and bestowed it upon my shoulders, and I was like,
magical.
Are you sure? Because it's like a big thing, like these are like usually very important to people. And it was like just from his literal neck, and he was like, this is for you.
Right on.
And he had like a really crazy experience there, and he was just feeling like so grateful. That was at LS Dream.
Oh, word. So is there like, have you noticed a lot of overlap between like the kind of people who are like open-minded to sex work and then also like the festival people? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, because a lot of
too.
those people are like very sexually liberated or in touch with their own sexuality. So they hear those things and they're like, cool. As opposed to some people who they hear those things and then it starts to become like an obsession for them. And it's like the only thing they can think about because they're so they're in an environment where you just can't talk about those things at all.
Right.
But in a lot of the festival environment, it's about talking about those things.
Right.
And getting comfortable and knowing yourself.
Wow, I dig that. So, you mentioned like knowing your sexuality.
Yeah.
What do you think that fucking means?
It's about knowing yourself.
Mm.
Because it's like, if you know your taste buds, that's a part of you that you know. If you know the kind of textures you like, that's a part of you that you know. If you know the temperature you like your water, that's something you know about yourself.
Right.
If you know how you like to be touched, then that's something else you know. If you know how you like to feel, then that's something you know. If you know that this person acts this way, it's going to make you feel this way. That's things to pay attention to.
Right. There is an incredible amount of detail when it comes to like being a human being.
Yes.
Especially, I would argue, like in the arena of sex, because of how like vulnerable, just because of how much different shit sex can be to somebody. So wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. So it's important to know your own boundaries and be familiar with your boundaries and be firm in your boundaries.
Right on.
Because anyone could say or do any which thing, but if it's something that you know you don't like, you have to stick by that.
Right.
You shouldn't be swayed in your boundaries, because those are your boundaries. That's what protects you.
Right. So, backtracking a little bit. So how long have you been doing this for?
About 5 years.
So was there like, how was that like transition? Well, it sounds like you didn't really have a transition, like going from, like, did you ever have the societal norm stuck in your noggin?
Not personally,
okay,
but
right.
I was around people who did.
Okay, right.
And
So,
I never liked it.
Oh, right on. Yeah. Never aligned with you?
No.
Right. So then, like, I guess my question would be, do you think, how long did it take you to, like, if you even have yet, settle into that career?
Probably 2 years, because for the first 2 years it was something that I very much enjoyed, but it was also like I was going through a lot in my life, as a lot of people are when they get into sex work, and so it becomes a survival thing for them. And while it was something that I really enjoyed as well, it was also kind of a survival thing. And then after 2 years, I had like been able to settle into the stability of it, and then I was like, oh, this is actually fine. Like, I'm not in this survival state, because a lot of people, this was not my 100% experience, but other people have experienced it in this way, that they go into sex work because they feel they have no other choice, because they need to make money and they have to make X amount of money by X amount of days, and they found out that this is the way they can do it. So then almost in a way they reluctantly pop their pussy, and they're like, oh man, like, I really don't want to do this, but like I really need to do this, so because of that I want to do this.
Right.
But I didn't experience it that way, but I have met people who have, and it's a real bummer, because there's always something that people can do and you don't have to push your boundaries.
Right.
But also because of the societal standard is like, yeah, if I just don't do well in this subject, I'll just drop out and become a stripper. But the thing is not everyone is built for that.
Right.
Not everyone wants to do something like that, and it's actually like way harder than it would be to just like push for like some coffee shop job or freelancing with like graphic design or something. All of them are hard. All of them have their own struggles, but what aligns with you more can aid in if it's that big of a struggle or not.
Hell yeah.
There's always other options.
So, fuck getting into sex. Well, even though it happens, like, so fuck getting into sex work if it's out of your boundary. Like, not a good idea.
Yeah. Don't do anything that's out of your boundaries, because some people are like, yeah, I just don't know what I'm doing. I might just start an OnlyFans and make a bunch of money. Like, that's what it looks like, because that's how a lot of sex work looks. It looks luxurious,
right,
but there's so many more layers to it, and it's so much harder than people anticipate. So a lot of people would start up like their page, and then they'd be like, yeah, that just didn't work for me. So like I just couldn't do it, and like what? I'm just gonna like pop my pussy and then like barely get paid. Like, I don't know how these girls do it, and it's because it's a lot of strategy, it's a lot of discipline, it's a lot of like knowing yourself, your boundaries, and what you're willing to like go through. Because some people, they put themselves through way more than what they're actually willing to do, and some people only put themselves through what they're willing to do, and it's part of that knowing your boundaries.
Right. And I imagine like to some extent too, like just learning where your boundaries are. Sometimes you do like accidentally step over top of them, right? That happens in my own life, not related to sex work. Like it is.
True.
So, do you have any amigas then that are, or amigos that are like, that did start on kind of that more negative note of, ugh, I just had to do this, but then ended up falling in love with it?
I don't think so. I think the people that I've known who have started have always loved it from the beginning and then just fell further in love with it, or the people that I knew, they still aren't excited about it, but they're excited about the money that comes with it.
Right.
A lot of people just do things for money. Like a lot of people go into school, become a doctor, not because they want to work with the human body, but because they want to make money.
Right.
Same exact thing.
Yeah.
But now switch the topic.
Right. So, So I think like a couple minutes ago you mentioned like challenges. You made the point to say like every industry, every career can and most likely will have its like pros and cons kind of thing. So what are some cons then of sex work?
One thing is that it can be, unless you have an LLC, it can be hard to get approved for things like loans or apartments because you have to do proof of income. And if they don't take your W-2 or they don't take your tax return, and that can sometimes be dicey. Also, sometimes places can be prejudice against sex workers.
Right.
They judge that. They don't think it's a real job. Even if you make enough money to buy the whole place, it doesn't matter because they don't like you.
Right.
So that's like a thing that people do, and that part really sucks.
Yeah.
Because my money is just as valid as someone else's money, but because it's not coming in the way that they're wanting it, then they don't consider it valid.
Ooh, yeah, I don't. That's really well said, and I don't like the way that feels.
But also a lot of places are not always like that. Like there's always places, especially in major cities, where that's not a problem because there are so many people of different walks of life, and strippers need homes too.
Yeah. That's awesome. That'd be a good tattoo, I think. So in Denver then, like it sounds like you might have run into like issues with that, specifically the financial aspect of it, or not really. Like you mentioned big cities.
Not in Denver. Here people are like a lot more open-minded about those things. If you're buying from someone who is maybe like conservative or sex repulsed and not for like sexual liberation, and they're like a private owner, then you can run into that.
Right.
I know if you go further up into like the countryside, you can find more of that. But I've only lived in major cities, so I have not faced that, but I know other people who have.
Right on. Interesting. So then still on the kind of the topic of like challenges, socially, I imagine there's been like some challenges. Like you already kind of mentioned your friends and shit.
Whoa, you got a stop sign, dude.
It's true.
We
did have a stop sign.
Yeah.
Cars are not priority. People are.
Period. So like socially then, like a scenario, if I may throw one your way. If you walk into like in a public event of some kind and you break it to someone that I'm into sex work. Well, first of all, will you start with that?
Almost never.
Word.
Almost never, unless they say themselves that they're into sex work.
Oh, right.
Because a lot of the times, as soon as you tell someone that, they'll treat you differently.
Yeah, that was gonna be my follow-up thing. Was like, do the waves get a little bit choppy after that? And
sometimes they do. So I try not to tell it unless I've already like caught a vibe and I've seen like what this person is about. And the more time you spend with people, if they're passionate about their beliefs, they'll tell you their beliefs without you asking.
Right.
So then you can like feel based off the things they say. If they start to say things that are maybe a little more misogynistic, a little more sexist, then okay, I'm definitely not sharing this information with this person, and I'm actually gonna go somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. Just remove yourself from the environment completely. Nice.
But if someone's talking about like sexual liberation and about the power of sex in those things, then like, okay, this is fine.
Right.
But I also don't go out to bars. I don't go out to clubs. That's not really like my thing.
Yeah.
I tried it at one point. Was never really about it. And
Did you guys bring a couch?
We did. No, you did.
That's okay.
Did
You're
you guys
fine.
bring a couch to the
Yeah.
This is
We're
my
filming a podcast.
my badass little futon.
That's so cool.
You like your? Can I pet your dog actually?
Yeah.
So
What kind of
cute.
dog is that?
It's a miniature poodle.
A sweet baby. That's the kind of dog.
Hello, is it a girl or boy?
It's a girl.
That's me.
That's pretty dope.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we're enjoying ourselves. We're under some trees
What's
in
the
the shade.
podcast?
Well, it's my first ever one that I'm doing on my YouTube channel. But specifically, she has like a really interesting career topic that we're kind of diving into. So,
Oh, cool.
fuck yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, if you'd like, I actually don't have my wallet on me. I also have business cards that
No, well, just tell me what it's called.
my podcast. Well, my YouTube channel is called Naturally Opie.
Naturally Ilby.
Opie, O-P-I-E. Yep.
Okay.
No space.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. So just one word, Naturally Opie, and then
Yeah.
just look for a little redhead,
Okay, cool.
and that's me.
Cool.
Cool. Hell yeah.
High five.
Thank you. Hell yeah.
Oh
Okay.
wait, look at this happy dog. That dog is so happy.
Dude, golden retrievers are they're a
Going
different
around
breed.
the circle, getting rubbed, so
Damn.
happy.
That is a lot of affection.
My dog is so happy. Just a circle around him, laying in the grass, getting his belly rubbed.
Hell yeah.
Runs around, makes a circle around the circle, gets his belly rubbed by someone else.
What's that raises a question. What is your spirit animal?
That's a great question. I think maybe a red panda.
Oh, whoa, really?
Yeah, 'cause they're
Interesting.
so cute. I love red pandas, and they like run around, and then when they're trying to be scary, they put their hands over their head and they go like this because they're trying to look big, and they stand on their hind legs, but they just look like these tiny little teddy bears.
Right. No shit.
They're so cute.
So does that even, like, if you could choose to be reincarnated into an animal, would it be a red panda? Or is that different?
I don't know. I've never thought about that. Maybe.
Word.
I think it could be difficult because red pandas are, they're a dying species.
Right.
Like most species are that aren't dogs, cats, cows, goats, or chickens,
Yeah.
or pigs now.
Or I feel like rats, too. Like, there's plenty of mice on this earth, I think.
There is.
So, I think I asked you this yesterday, but like, well, actually, before we dive into that, what's like, I guess not really your process, but so what are specific things? You mentioned OnlyFans, so like, and then before this podcast, you also mentioned like cosplay. So what all are like your different puzzle pieces? Do you know what I'm saying?
So I do cosplay, I do Instagram, I do TikTok. With that, it's like technically modeling for like different outfits, different costumes, different even lingerie pieces. I'm also partnered with Hot Topic, and so like I'll promote some of their stuff as well. Smaller businesses I'll work with and like, put their product out there. So like their clothes, or for example, their ears, because I also do like, how there's cat girls?
Yeah.
I do that too.
Nice.
So I'll work with them, and so that'll promote their product, as well as like I get this free thing. And also the creators that I've worked with.
Oh damn, I gotta.
Okay, Young Gravy. But also the creators I've worked with are so super sweet, so it introduces me into another realm of like people and about awesome creators to work with.
Oh, word.
So it's
Little
like
bit-
the influencer stuff.
Right. A little bit more of that community, like showing through. Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I dress up in my little costumes. I go to anime conventions, do a lot of creator collabs and meetups and stuff. I haven't done them in quite a while, but I used to do them a lot. Partly because of the pandemic, also partly because I'm like at a state in my life where I'm like just really being with myself, especially in my content creation.
Oh, right. So I imagine like you mentioned what was that word that you Googled and found? Surface level.
Superficiality.
Superficiality. It definitely sounds like you're gravitating like away from that a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Is that like scary? Gravitating away from it in that industry that's so seemingly like founded upon superficiality?
I think anything new can be scary
Yeah.
if you embrace it in that way.
Right.
Or not if you embrace it, if you challenge it in that way. Because anything new is something that's uncharted.
Right.
And a lot of people are scared of new things. And so a part of me is scared, but the bigger part of me is like excited
Right.
and curious and ready to see what that's like.
Dude, hell yeah. That's beautiful. And it is like, oh fuck, I had a good point there. Or had something to add to that. It escapes me.
That's okay.
But, so, do you have anything else you'd like to speak to?
I do want to go back to one of the cons that we were
Oh, yeah.
talking about because
Yeah.
it came up and I was thinking about it. And one of the cons can be like how people view you. Because after they find out about something like that, then they don't see you as you. They see you as the title you gave yourself. Whereas if someone was like a doctor,
Damn.
then someone's like, yeah, this person's a doctor and they're this, this, and this. But some people can be like, yeah, they're a sex worker, so they're this, this, and this. And it's
Right.
all these assumptions that they put onto you without knowing anything about you or how you do things.
Right. Fuck, dude. It is so important, I think, to like, as a human being, to look out into the world and keep an open mind to just like the fact that everybody is a symphony of shit.
Yeah.
You know, like whether you think it's good, bad, or ugly. Like, I mean, I think you're entitled to your opinion, but also like, don't like tighten the noose on like opportunities for that person. Like you mentioned, the finances and shit.
Yeah.
Like, fuck all that.
Absolutely. And then one thing with that I think you even mentioned before we started was about like we were talking about like dicks and balls or something like that, and I was like explaining how I actually don't really do a whole lot of stuff with
Oh,
that,
right, yeah.
or how like I don't really film with other people. And like I'm demisexual, so I have to have a connection in order to even be like intimate with someone. But a lot of the times that people think of OnlyFans girls, they think, oh, do you want me to help you film?
Yeah.
Oh, do you need like a co-star or something? And it's actually like, no, I'm actually going to throw up because the idea of that
Oh my
is
God.
so repulsive to me because I don't know anything about this person.
Right.
And I have to have like a deep connection in order to even be like interested in intimacy.
Right. Hell yeah.
And a lot of people like to try to force that connection because they think, oh, this is an OnlyFans girl, so if I take her out to a nice dinner, I'm gonna get some bucks.
Right.
But some people do operate that way, but I don't operate that way. But because they didn't take that time to understand like my boundaries and my standards and the way that I connect and like my love languages, then that's not something that is able to be cultivated.
Good move.
Public filming.
Yeah, no shit.
Along with that, people will think that if they give you money, that you'll have to be nice to them now. If they give you money, they're entitled to your attention. If they give you money, then they're entitled to an experience.
Right.
But that's not always how it goes.
Right.
Some people are like that, but I'm not really like that.
Right. So you mentioned demisexual, right? What are, if you could educate me quickly, like what are the different, what's the whole spectrum there?
Ooh, that's a lot. So there's like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, there's like lesbians, and then there's gay men, or there's some people who are just sapphic, which is just like, you know, feminine energy.
Oh, weird.
And then there's people who are bisexual, or people who are demisexual, which is the connection. And demisexual also verges on gray sexual, and gray sexual is on the asexual spectrum.
Holy fuck. Some
Yeah.
details going on
There's
there.
so many more too.
Right.
Sexuality and naming those things, it's like unless you know You probably don't know about it, or unless you know someone who is like that, then you probably don't know about it.
Right. Do you think like at some point it's just like? Do you think at any point it's like why even slap a label on it? Like why can't I just be me?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I 100% agree in those things, but at the same time, like, it has its purpose as well. People have labels for a reason, so that they're like, okay, actually, no, I'm a lesbian, so, like,
right.
I'm not into men, but then at the same time, someone can be like, well, I'm not usually into men, but now I am, or, I don't know. It can be helpful to understand how you feel about things, but at a certain point, it can also be limiting because it doesn't open you up to those other things. But if that's just really how it is that you are, then that's just how it is that you are.
Right.
And then great, you don't have to worry about the rest of it.
Right. You make a good point. Like specifically, like we dove into the label because like you brought it up in conversation. There is like utility to labels for sure, but also cons. Pros and cons to everything, bro.
Yeah, that's the balance.
So, I wish I had my phone on me so I could look at my other my questions that I had.
Oh, you sent them to me.
Oh, nice. Wonderful.
I can't grant the wish for your phone, but I can grant the wish for the questions.
There we go. Beautifully said. Thank you. There's not a lot here. So your family is aware, right? Was that? I mean, I know you kind of educated me on that before the podcast, of course, but like, difficulties there, or not really?
Not really. Like, my family is very loving. Genuine practices of unconditional love, like, no matter what. And my family's, they've been through some shit, so they have been challenged on their practice of loving no matter what. And not only with me, but like with other family dynamics and with and just with stuff that's like unconventional, or things that challenge their mind, or things that they would never do, but now like my cousin is doing that thing and they're like, oh my god, what do? I still love them so much, but I definitely don't agree with this. And so they've been really challenged to be like, okay, this is what you preach, now practice it.
Right.
And so they have.
Damn,
So
that's
when they
dope.
found out about like that bass is rattling the tire. Oh my
I
goodness.
feel like I recognize that song, but I can't put a name to it right now.
Wow.
Anyways. Fuck.
So, they were,
Yeah.
you know, were essentially tested by, like, universe, by creator, to be like, if this is truly what you believe, do it. And they did. So, when they found out, they were like, I wouldn't do that, but, like, I love you, and, like, you're really safe, and you're kind to everyone, and, like, you're taking care of yourself, and, like, it's going well, obviously. Wow. So, like, all right, this is okay. Like, all right, cool.
Right. Ooh, and so that, kind of on a different note, if you want to go back to that, by all means, please do. But kind of on a different note, just to clarify, this is your main source of income.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, that, I think it just kind of goes to say, like, adults, like, can adult based on, or with the foundation of sex work. Hell yeah.
Yep. And even with that, my mom was like, when she found out, I told her, and she was like, I wanted to do that, but I didn't know where to even begin with that. And like, what? You can do that? Can you teach me? And I was like, I'm definitely not going to teach you that. You're my mother.
Damn.
No. But, yeah, that's a thing.
Hell yeah.
But
That's awesome.
she doesn't know the first thing about it. So she'll ask me questions, and I'll be like, stop. Don't.
Oh, God.
Don't do this, Mom.
Oh, God.
You don't know what you're doing.
So, a boundary. A little bit, right?
Yep.
God, there's so many, like, when I talk to you and like when I talk to other people at the aesthetic dance and at that workshop and shit, it really is so it's so like I think obvious is a good word for it. It's obvious to me that like the bigger cities like this just have like such an insanely like wider variety of people and ideas and like habits and whatever else.
Super diverse.
Right. And I feel like ultimately, and this is just kind of like an opinion thing, I guess, but I think ultimately what makes like a well-rounded person is somebody who like has experienced a variety of people. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. I think when someone is not only like faced but just around people who are different than them, it almost challenges the beliefs that they have already decided for themselves.
Right.
And it's like they can question that if they choose to. But when people get closed-minded, they reject new information.
Right.
But new information is what keeps us evolving and growing and changing, and also solidifying what it is that we already believe. So then you have to question it, and you're like, is this really something I think? And they question it, and they go through this process, and whatever that process looks like, it's like, no, I don't believe this actually. Or, yes, I still believe this. And if anything, I believe this even more.
Right.
So
Hell yeah.
it can be helpful, it can be beneficial, it could also be damaging. It depends on how someone chooses to go about those things and the life that they want to cultivate for themselves.
Right. Dude, well said, bro. 10 points to you. That was very well said.
Thank you.
Damn. So, pros to sex work. Like, you kind of already mentioned, like, you enjoy it anyways. You're already, like, kind of an enthusiast.
Yeah.
So you get to, like, that's a good outlet.
Yes. So pros, genuine sexual liberation as well as sexual expression.
Right.
Because a lot of those things aren't always allowed.
Right.
So when you're able to dive into that realm, it is so liberating. At the same time, it's also been incredibly healing. Because, you know, like, as a woman, as someone who is female-bodied, or anyone who's even, like, a little bit feminine, men are dogs sometimes.
Dude.
Like, genuine, really gross, like, sees these people as meat. And, like, I hear that a lot about people who, they're, like, into men and they're a man themselves, but it's hard for them to explore that because they constantly get treated like meat.
Oh, wow.
Even for men. And it doesn't feel good, but they don't think about it until they're actually in a situation like that. Like, go to a gay bar and wear something like, actually, it doesn't matter what you wear. Just go to a gay bar and it can happen.
Right.
But also, they can still be super sweet. It's just like, you never know what's going to happen. And even some women do it too. But having those experiences and then being able to still be in that sexual realm, it's almost like when you have those really positive experiences, it's healing that part that was hurt before.
Oh, wow.
So, like, you know, if you break a bone and it heals wrong, you have to break it again in order to heal it correctly and put it into the right place.
Right.
So you have to be back in a situation that's similar and then do what's supposed to, you know, do what is right.
Right.
Either if that's, like, you know, really sticking with your boundaries and being able to be with that, or you're with someone and they're just, like, really nice and they respect those boundaries. So then you're not in that same position anymore. But it could have been. And then you correct those feelings and correct what happened before. And then that can be really healing. Let's see, another pro, obviously, you know, if you do well, the money is great. If you do well. Some people, they don't do as well, and then they're mad at themselves that they don't make that money. But there's nothing wrong with the person. There's never anything wrong with the person. It's the marketing strategy.
Right.
There's a market for everything. All bodies are beautiful. There's a something for everyone all of the time, especially in the sex industry.
Fuck yeah, dude. So even, like, it sounds like, and let me know if you agree or disagree here, but it sounds like to some extent, like a pro of getting into sex work could be that for some people that they do find themselves, like it can help, like, just help you
Absolutely.
cultivate like a better understanding of who you are as a human being. Hell yeah.
Like, for one example, this is so funny. This is like a personal story and it is sexual,
Cool.
but it's not graphic.
Cool.
May I share?
Yeah, absolutely. Fuck
Okay,
yeah.
so I got this request for an armpit fetish custom video. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And it's just 5 minutes, like, showing off my armpits. And just like, here's my armpit. There we are. This is it.
No way.
Ooh, my armpit. And then, because of that, then, like, I later found out in life, like, someone had just licked my armpit one time because we were, like, in a cuddle puddle. We were all, like, tantric, and they just, like, were loving, and they were just like, no, I love you. And then I was like, oh, this awakened something in me.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking
so,
awesome.
like, partnered with, like, the fetish video, then I was like, oh, so this is something that I actually enjoy.
Ooh, there you go.
And it's not even related to penetration.
Right. Dude, wow. Thank you for sharing. That's badass. Damn.
But of course, that's not, like, the only thing. There's
Right.
a lot of other things. Like, there's really wholesome things, too, that feel so good. Like, I was also paid for a custom video just telling this person that they are loved.
Oh, wow.
And just telling them that, like, they deserve to be on this earth and, like, they're a good human. And, like, thank you for existing.
Damn.
And, like, it came so much from the soul because I really do believe that about people.
Yeah.
And, like, that was it. And so it's also, like, it doesn't even have to be something sexual, but it's something that's intimate. So
Right.
those things can also be incredibly healing, not only for me to, like, to share that kind of love with someone, but also for them to be receiving of that kind of love as well.
Right. So does the fact that, like, so you got paid to do that one, right?
Yeah.
Does that, like, does the money ever, like, kind of fuck with you sometimes as far as, like, authenticity goes? Do you know what I
No.
mean? Nice.
Because I don't do things I don't want to do. I just don't.
Right.
If they pay me for it and they're like, here, do this thing, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I said I wouldn't do it. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And then, like, refund them their money. Because money will not change the things that I want to do.
Nice, dude. I love that. That's a good, like, grounded stance to have. Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's where boundaries come into play. Because it's important to know your boundaries and all that jazz.
Right.
Like, that's the most important thing. So if your boundaries are wishy-washy, it's going to be hard.
Ooh.
Because you don't know yourself.
Right. So when did you, like, boundaries specifically, how long have you been, like, throwing that term around?
My whole life. Because
Oh,
boundaries are always changing. As people are always changing.
Right.
And different things we could become comfortable with are always changing.
Damn.
People are ever changing.
Right.
All the time.
That's a phenomenal point. I guess I just asked because, like, in my own life experience, it's been, like, just within the past year or two when I've really been questioning, damn, that dude is on a...
They ride those at festivals too.
Those are sick. Have you ever ridden one?
No. So what we're looking at, it is like a skateboard. It's a hoverboard is what it's called, but it looks like just a board and then there's one wheel. And you balance on both sides and then you go. It's motorized.
Homeboy's just like, he's like floating. Dude, that looks awesome. But anyway, so I was speaking from just my own, okay, so in the past, like, year or two really is when I've dove into, oh, like, what the fuck is a boundary? You know? Straight up. And so...
That's a powerful space to be in.
Yeah. And I still find myself, like, struggling, you know, like, just not really knowing, like, I found, at least within the past couple of months, that my definition of that is, like, changed what a boundary is, and so, like, then that throws, like, everything off. But, yeah, look, I'm kind of excited, actually, to, like, look back. You've talked a lot about boundaries, like, in this conversation, so I'm excited to, like, re-listen to / watch this and, like, hopefully, like, dig out a little bit more. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love the boundary conversation from, like, a teacher's standpoint and a student standpoint, because I'm constantly both for myself all the time.
Nice. Hell yeah. So, moving on a little bit, unless you have any final thoughts there. I want to talk about, like, authenticity more. Like, it really intrigues me. Like, you mentioned, what the fuck is that word again?
Superficiality.
Superficiality, right? So, like,
It's good that it's not on your head all the time, though.
True, yeah.
Because to be superficial is really limiting.
right. That's a good point. So,
I also have to pee, so before we go into
Oh, cool.
this, I want to hit the bathroom before we get into a really good topic like that.
cool. gnarly. Do you want to use the funnel?
No, that's alright, but thank you.
Of course. You want me to walk you over there, or are you chilling?
I'm chilling. I would actually like to invite you to maybe speak on some of your own perspectives of these things just with your channel. And
Dude, that's a good ass idea.
where you're at with that as well. Just like your own thoughts with yourself.
Oh yeah.
And maybe like what you were expecting versus what has arrived, or what you were anticipating versus how that's showing up, and maybe something you're hopeful for.
Right. Oh, hell yeah, dude. I'll definitely do that. Enjoy yourself. Be safe. Ladies and gents, holy shit balls. I'm gonna first make sure that we're still recording and everything. Damn, we're gonna go for 45 minutes. What the fuck? Okay, so wow, I kind of forgot most of the words, or most of her instruction that she just gave me, but peep this. This is something that I really was excited to talk about and specifically like upload online, right? Because when I first heard about when I first like caught wind of the idea of taking sex work seriously, not for like myself, but for, how do I want to word this? When I first caught wind of the idea that like sex workers are people too, straight up, like word for word, that thought went through my head way back when the seed was initially planted. I was actually watching, or I listened to Theo Von talk to a sex worker. Theo Von is a comedian based out of Louisiana. Gang, shout out Theo. But his channel originally was the one that, or his podcast with this individual, was originally the thing that planted this seed in my mind, where I realized, within like the first 5 minutes listening to this podcast, I realized, oh shit, I've totally had like a way misconstrued, I think that's a word, misconstrued perspective of like what prostitution is. And yeah, I definitely like B at one point mentioned like how people get caught up in just objectifying that. Like as soon as they hear that little bit of information about somebody, it's like everything else is like, fuck it, you know, like fuck this person. And I definitely come a long ways from that, which is really liberating, right? I love how she used that word earlier. That's one of my favorite words in the past couple months. But yeah, dude, it's been like totally fucking eye-opening to like sit with somebody like her, and to listen, of course, to like other podcasts of people like getting vulnerable and like getting brave and opening up about like what they do for a living and how they fucking feel about it. So yeah, welcome back.
Nice.
I hope you're relieved. Have you ever, what is like the longest, this is a really specific question, but what's like the longest amount of time that you've ever held urine in your bladder?
Maybe like 7 hours.
Oh, no shit.
It was terrible. I would never recommend it. I was at EDC for my first year that I ever went to EDC, and I'm never going back again.
Okay.
And the bathroom line was so long, and they were so gross.
Oof.
And they were like so far away from where we were. And I did not want to fucking do that at all.
Right.
And my partner at the time, really bad situation, really terrible partner. He was like guilting me into not going to the bathroom. And I was just like,
Oof.
okay. I was like, we'll see about this. And then, again, I would not recommend it. Because I held my pee for so long, like I got a UTI.
Right.
And that sucked.
Dude, vaginas are sensitive, bro.
Super.
What the fuck?
Super sensitive. And I was like, why did I do this? And it was because, you know, like, I was trusting someone else with my body. And that's just,
right.
like, not good if you don't have a good source for that.
Right, damn. Well said. I will say,
And the bathrooms were disgusting. So that's another part.
Right, another turn off. Dude, okay, so what was I gonna say about? Okay, so piss and holding it.
Piss.
I encourage you next time, like you do find yourself like holding it in, even if you're like in the apartment, you know, you're like 3 steps away from your bathroom. Even if you're like holding it in just to finish the game real quick or something. Try to notice what it does to your creativity.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
It's a block.
No, bro. I found the complete opposite.
Really?
Yeah. I found that like if I have to piss really bad, I mean, then I'll get like way creative in regards of how to get myself out of that situation into a situation where I can urinate.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about? It's a real
guess
specific.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I've always just been like, I gotta piss. Bye.
Yeah. Fair. There you go. Yeah.
Or like someone will be like, well, we want to go do this thing, and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna piss.
Yeah.
So have fun with that.
Right.
And they're like, but we're gonna get separated. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm gonna piss. I'm going.
Right.
I'll see you when I see you.
Right.
Or we'll develop like a meetup spot real quick, where it's like, if you really want to go to this and you want me there, wait 5 minutes.
Right.
Like, give me a sec. But this is happening because I know my body and I prioritize my needs.
Right. Oh yeah. I think it's like literally like scientifically unhealthy, I believe, to
Yes.
hold your urine for like extended periods of time.
That's how I got a UTI.
Right. Yeah.
It puts a lot of stress on your bladder and on your body itself because you're depriving your body of something that it needs.
Right. Which is relief in this specific scenario, right?
Yeah.
And like yeah, it does build up like what's this, like pelvic floor tension
Yeah.
when you're holding your piss and shit, like it literally I've noticed anyways that it definitely does manifest legitimate like muscles getting tense, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
Especially if like I imagine, especially if like you're trying to sleep, like when your body's trying to recover, if you're like
Yep.
holding in, 6 gallons of urine.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
That's also why you're not supposed to eat 2 hours before you go to bed.
Right.
Because your body's supposed to be resting, and if your body's digesting, it's not resting.
Right. Yep. Word. So, what else could we go into? I'm really excited. Let me just say this real quick. I'm really excited to see, like, if my parents listen to this. I'm really excited to see, like, their reaction, given the fact that I feel like the majority of my, like, kind of small town self is because of not only the small town that I come from, but also, like, them. So I'm intrigued to see, like, how / what and their little perspective shifts, because, like, their son is talking to a badass, beautiful individual who's, like, into this shit. And it's real. Like, this is a real person, bro.
It's true.
We all are, of course. But
So I think, because what I've noticed as well in other people that comes up a lot, because this is not the first time I've talked about this stuff, is that people will think, okay, just remove the sex work idea in general. If they see a guy and a girl hanging out, they're like, oh, they're together, or oh, they're fucking,
oh, right.
or oh, they're like interested in each other. And even if some of those things are true, they think about that first before they think about a connection that is formed or conversation that is had. And a lot of that can stem back into projecting heterosexual relationships and monogamy onto children. Because where kids will, like, it'll be like a little kid and one of them's a guy and one of them's a girl, and they're just these little fucking kids. They don't know anything about that stuff. And they'll be like, oh, who's your new boyfriend? Just down to stuff that's small.
Right.
That little. That teaches them that if you're hanging out, that teaches that little girl that if she's hanging out with a boy, then there is something there that isn't just friendship.
Dude, right. That's just planting seeds, eh? And then, like, over time, as more of those micro moments occur, it's just like, it's getting watered. And you, like, just start, of course, when you're that young, you don't, like, you can't have a conversation like this where you can step back from your sense of self.
They don't know. They're learning still. So they're like, okay, so if I hang out with a boy, then that means that we're going to get married.
Right.
Oh, so if they don't want to get married, they're not going to hang out with boys. Or if they, like, think that that's what comes next, then that's what they'll do. Because that's what they were taught. They don't know any better. Most people, they don't know any better. Otherwise, they would do something about that. They would do better.
Right.
So along with that, then when they find out that I'm a sex worker, then they're like, oh, he's definitely paying her for sex. Or he's definitely subbing to her page. Or she probably is, like, coercing him into doing these things. But that is not always what happens. Some people, they do that. But in this circumstance, like, I don't do that. That is not my realm. I don't know how you live your life, but I have a feeling you don't do that, considering the conversation we have had.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's definitely something that can come up. Another thing is that I'm boiled down to just this person of sex. But there's so much more beyond that, and like
Right.
so much more wisdom that if they're not listening and wanting to hear the wisdom, they're not going to hear it, because they're just going to hear this person's obsessed with sex.
Right. This bitch pops pussy.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, what?
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that can come up. Another thing that can come up is conversation about sex. So when my family found out, they actually started talking about sex in their own marriage more. And so that became something that was like healthy for them, where they were like then coming to me for some reason about their like sexual experiences, and they were like talking about these intricacies of things that they were thinking about, but they don't know what to do with it.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm like, yeah, talk about that with your wife. And then they talk about it, and then they're like, oh, so this is actually amazing. And it's
wow.
like, yes, awesome, incredible. And like a lot of people will just go to me searching for either validation or permission because they don't know how to give it to themselves.
Right.
So that is another thing that can come up.
Right.
Another thing that can come up is, since I am so open about these things, that someone will sub to my page and be like, hey, I saw that video, so do you want to be friends? And they're messaging me on like my OnlyFans, and I'm like, this is not the time or the place.
Right.
If you want to form a personal connection,
Right.
you need to know like my personal like information in that aspect.
Right.
And not always is that something I'm 100% ready to give out to people, because it is such a vulnerable place. So like, you know, if one of your friends wants to message me or something, they go through you. They don't go through my public pages to
Right.
get to that stuff.
I got you. Hell yeah. Good little caveat.
Yeah,
And I
very
should.
important.
So so that actually, I was going to ask you this earlier. So do you want, like, so do you not want then in my video description for me to like link any of your shit? You know?
I don't really care. I definitely don't want it to be a promotional standpoint, because it's like, I'm not doing this to promote anything.
Right.
I'm doing this for information, for human experience.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's like, yeah, this is me, and like, you can
Right.
put my Instagram if you want to, but you can also put like my personal Instagram if you want to, the one that's disconnected from like my sex work, the ones that's just the authentic me. And then if like, you know, they'll send the follow request, and then I'll go to you and I'll be like, hey, who's this person?
Yeah.
What are they about? Do you know this individual? Tell me more about them.
Right.
And then from then, if I feel comfortable inviting them into that inner workings of my life and my circle, then
Right.
that's up to them.
Hell yeah. I can
To
see
me.
that. Yeah. I can see that being handy for like, in the scenario that male or female watches this and is like, like inspired and has been like maybe wanting to get into sex work for a while, but doesn't know like how to and shit. Like I could, are you open to people like coming to you for advice then?
I'm only open to advice on like sex or relationships, but as far as getting someone else started into sex work, I believe that is a personal journey, and I do not want to provide a lot of those pointers, because I also do not want to be responsible for those kind of things.
Right.
Because people have come to me, and like even some of my close friends who are not in sex work, they came to me and they were like, hey, I want to get started in this. I don't know where to begin. Like, can you coach me? I am not a coach.
Yeah.
I will not do that. But if someone's like, hey, I saw this video and I was like really empowered, and I want to share this story with you, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But it's important to be mindful of the intention there as well.
Hell yeah.
Because it's like, if you're sending this message, what are you wanting? Are you actually searching for advice, or are you searching for someone to fix stuff for you?
Right.
Because I will not do the heavy lifting, but I can provide conversation. I can provide like an ear, but I will not tell people what to do.
Right.
Because that's like their own life. That's
Right.
up to them. And even if I told them what to do, it's up to them if they're going to do that. And I also don't want people coming back to me and being like, you said this, so, because that has happened before.
Oof.
Where someone asked me like, hey, if I post this at this time, will it do well? And I'm like, I can't tell you that for sure. It could, or it couldn't. And then they post it at the time that they were thinking, and they come back and they said, you said that this would help. And I said, this could help. That's important.
Right.
There is a distinction between
Hell yeah.
the words there.
Right.
And it's not to be sneaky either. It's just like, it could or it could not, because each individual person's journey will be their own. So what works for me doesn't mean it will work for someone else,
Right.
and vice versa.
Individuality, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Huh. So, do you have any final thoughts there?
I do love hearing people's like transformations into things like that, because I've had a lot of those experiences and those conversations, and even before filming this, like I even heard one from you this morning. Like I woke up and then I saw like these voice messages, and it was like really powerful stuff.
Right.
And I love hearing that stuff. Now I can only be like, thank you for sharing this with me. Like that's so amazing. Like I'm happy for you. I'm excited for you. I can only share like so much of that, but my intention in that is not to validate but to celebrate.
Right. Ooh. That's a good. You've had a couple good one-liners, bro. Hell yeah. I love that. Damn. Okay, so cool. That was a good not recap, but that was a good finish there. So next I want to ask you, like, just you personally, what's like next for you in your career, if anything?
So
Or if
I'm
you're
definitely going to be doing this probably for the next maybe like 2 to 3 years. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I would love to develop my own like holistic practices. And as I'm talking about these things, I probably will do something in the realm of like being a sex coach or something like that,
Right.
because I have so much knowledge that I'm
Damn.
that puppy. And I do have so much knowledge that I have cultivated, and like I would love to share that with people who are open to something like that. I'm also super interested in like massage therapy as well as sound healing.
Nice.
And Reiki and like that kind of body work in the
Right.
holistic field. So I'm not entirely sure what that looks like, as none of us really do.
Yeah.
And
But you got places you want to go.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I definitely love those realms and the freedom that comes with them, and the liberation of the soul and helping other people in that realm. I'm definitely going to be doing a lot of volunteer work with animals specifically, and I probably will always do a little bit of sex work because it's just something that I found so much fun.
Right.
Whether it's like I'm behind the camera, or I'm holding the camera,
Right.
or I'm editing, or I am coaching.
So have you? Ooh, that raises an interesting question, I think. So like, in my experience, like just editing videos of myself in the third person, I found that to be like really, I guess like, I don't know if this is actually a word, utilitarious, like handy, for like
Utilitarian, maybe?
maybe I don't know. It's just like, it's been interesting and like literally helpful for me to watch myself from a third person perspective. You know what I'm saying? Was there anything like that stuck out to you, or that that was like news to you because of you editing videos of you watching, or if you playing with yourself kind of thing? Like, was there anything that came from that where you're like, damn, I didn't, you know what I'm saying?
It definitely made me realize how much I love the human anatomy.
Oh, word.
Because a lot of me rewatching my videos was a lot of me looking at my own anatomy. And then if there was someone else there, looking at their anatomy as well. But not just from the sexual point, but just like, you know, like this is a body, like this is a person. And like these are their bits and stuff like that. In the same way that like these are our hands and these are our fingers, like, you know, that's their coochie, like, that's their butt, you know.
Right.
And especially those areas where not a lot of people are like ever even excited to talk about, or do they even talk about it in general?
Right.
So getting to like really treasure and like value those pieces, those are still really important pieces, and they're very powerful.
Right.
Like they're so powerful that in this society we have been taught to hide them and to not talk about them, and that these are things that are shameful.
Right.
But every single one of us has them, and we're not talking about it.
Dude, yeah, what? That doesn't add up. Interesting.
So really powerful in a way that people are trying to suppress that power, because like what happens if we're all talking about these things and it's not sexual?
Right.
Now we're all super knowledgeable on these things and super knowledgeable on ourselves and our bodies. And
free.
And free. And that
You
is
know,
not
like-
something that is taught.
Right.
They teach you in like sex ed, if you even have sex ed, that this goes in here. And this is all the names for it. There you go.
Right.
That's it.
Good luck, bitch.
Yep. And they're like, have safe sex, and this is what it looks like. But don't do it. Or they won't even teach safe sex, and they just teach don't do it. And then that's how
Dude.
people get into situations where they're uneducated, and then it becomes dangerous. Not only like these kids that like you didn't want to have a kid, but because you didn't know and because you weren't taught, now you have a kid.
Yeah.
And that's like
Imagine, bro.
something that
Yeah.
happens.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like a lot there.
Right.
Whereas if someone had more information on something like that, maybe that wasn't, maybe that's either something they could have avoided or something they could have embraced fully.
Right.
Instead of being like, oh, I'm in this situation. Instead, this is the gift that I have. So that can be changed there.
Fuck yeah. That kind of reminds me of an older Joe Rogan podcast with Miley Cyrus. And she talked about, not sex specifically, but she talked about how I think she had like desires of her own to write a kid's book about doing drugs. And like, that kind of makes me think, and this might already exist, I've never just looked into it personally, but like a kid's book on like the anatomy of a vagina, and like but make it obviously like kind of kid friendly in regards to like keeping their attention, but also like one about like sex and how it can be, it's so much more than this, like, you know, like it can be like spiritual, it could be kind of really whatever you want it to be, I think
that's definitely a difficult subject for kids because it's like they're just trying to learn how to fucking walk.
Yeah.
Because there's
Oh,
definitely
God.
like big gray area there where it's like, at what age are these kids allowed to learn about these things?
Right, that's a good
At
question.
what age can their brain retain this information in a way?
Yeah.
And also the way that is taught will be incredibly important.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of people who are like, have really dark hidden intentions, like really not great people, would take advantage of a circumstance like that.
Right.
As they already do.
Dude, yeah.
So it's like, that's a tough one.
Right.
Like some parents don't even have the talk with their kid ever. So it's like,
Right.
what do you do then?
Dude, yeah.
Like, this is a huge subject that controls a lot of people's lives, and now they just have no information. Like, what happens then?
Right.
And like, as boundaries come up as well, it's something they're trying to learn from themselves, whereas a lot of these adults don't even know their own boundaries, so how are they going to teach that to their kid?
Right. Dude, you're spitting facts right now. I personally did not get the like sex talk from my parents. I mean, I got it when I was in middle school, I believe, from like the school. But it was like, in retrospect now, I mean, I don't know. You're right. You make a good point in saying the waters there of like, when do we introduce this stuff to kids? How? Who? All the like, those waters are fucking murky, bro, and choppy. Like, and I don't want to go down that really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very. I think we killed it in like one or 2 days. The topic of sex, and it was, in my opinion, now was not enough information. But also, like, I understand too. I think that like those people are, for the most part, I think doing the best that they can.
Yes,
You know, like-
absolutely. Everyone is a little stick. Everyone's not a little stick, but I'm going to use this stick to say that everyone is always doing their best.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will think that they didn't do their best. And so now that like their kid turned out this way because they didn't do well, but they always did well. They did so well with all of the information that they had. And that's okay.
Hell yeah.
And there's always more information that can be learned, and that's okay too.
Right.
Because you can only do what you can with the information you had. And if your information was limited, then of course what you teach is going to be limited as well. And that's okay.
Right.
It's important to practice the forgiveness in that, and then be able to come back to it and be like, I forgive myself. And then from there, if you're introduced to more knowledge, you can still teach that knowledge.
Right.
Like, if you're a parent, you don't ever stop being a parent.
Well,
So, as more things become apparent, you can parent that still.
right.
It takes a lot of courage and a lot of understanding with oneself and a lot of forgiveness.
Right,
But
yeah.
it's there,
Right.
and it still can be practiced, and
Damn.
it still can be embraced.
Dude, it is like this whole thing is just reminding me of like what the it can be so complex to be a human being and to
Mhm.
like
It is.
but it is I love that belief or like could be argued as fact that I think everybody really is doing the actual best that they fucking can given the tools that they were given as a child or
Exactly.
as an adult, whatever, you know.
Mhm.
Like even I was just thinking about this the other day in contemplation about like criminals. I think like it literally that rule or like that belief applies to truly everybody, like
Yeah.
and that can kind of like, I don't want to say buying into that belief, but like investigating into that belief can afford you like a lot of compassion for people, which feels way better than fuck you, you know.
Yeah, it's like that person was taught that. They learned it from somewhere.
Right.
People aren't just born like that.
Dude, yeah, I am also of that belief. I ask that question to people a lot. Like, do you think it's like I think it's a question of nurture or nature.
Yeah.
You know, like, do you think people are born like the way that they are, or do you think that they're a blank slate and they just gather up this huge bank of experience? And I definitely lean way more in the direction of like they learn that shit.
Yeah,
You know, like
definitely. Like, I learned free love, so I'm able to practice free love. But someone else who learned this conditional love, that's all they knew. So when they encounter a free love, they're like, well, that's not love. But it's not the love that they learned.
right.
But it's a different love that I learned.
Dude, wow. Damn, this whole conversation is inspiring so much reflection. You know? I'm like, fuck. And I love every time you said the word liberation, my heart flutters a little bit cuz like that just seems like I don't know, in my own life lately that's very much been like freedom and liberation, which are synonyms, right?
They're really similar.
Okay.
I find that liberation can be a lot more powerful of a word.
Let's can you look up the definition? Like I kind of want to know the differences there. And
Ooh, it's 222.
oh shit, what time? You gotta be done by 3 or something, right?
Oh, it's fine. It's so close. But do you know the meaning of 222?
Negative. Please educate me.
So 222 calls to take note of what you want, where you are, and how you can learn and grow.
Damn.
It's an angel number.
Huh.
So it focuses on like your attention to heart and your connections,
Ooh.
which can also be connection with oneself. So it can also mean a number of reflection, which is crazy because we're
Damn.
talking about this.
Dude, yeah. The synchronicities.
And these synchronicities have been happening like this whole time too.
Yep.
I would love to touch on those synchronicities after I give you these definitions.
Yeah.
So freedom is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. But then liberation means the act of setting someone free from imprisonment, slavery, or oppression, and also can be a release.
Right. Okay, word.
And then I want to see freedom versus liberation. So what is the difference between liberation and freedom? Some people say very often these two words are used as synonyms and used interchangeably, but are quite distinct from each other connotation-wise. Liberty is used under context of being free under some sort of framework, be it legal, whereas freedom describes one's act to be able to do something without any bound, framework, or constraint. Liberty is given, whereas freedom acts as a protector, which allows liberty.
Oh, whoa.
But that's just what some people are talking about.
Right.
Some people say that freedom can be mostly used for the physical body, whereas liberation is more used for the soul.
Right. That aligns in my mind as well. I think in order for that to really sink in, I had to read it myself and like close my eyes and think about it for a while. But there's most definitely like a difference there between the two of them. Liberation sounds way more sexy. But
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been a common. I guess this is what I was going to speak to a little bit ago. Wait, we did put a pin in the synchronicities. Are you talking about like the raccoon and shit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the mushroom.
Right.
And then the mushrooms here too.
Right.
So, do you want to tell the story, or should I?
You can go for it. Hell yeah.
Okay. So, we're at Red Rocks and we're hiking. There's a show that's going on. Yeah, it was the Avett Brothers. No, we did not see it, but I know a lot of people are really big on Avett Brothers. My mom is one of them. And so we're just like walking along the trail, and I was talking about this other time that I was at Red Rocks with my lover, and we had been like getting ready to leave, and I dropped this little raccoon that I have, and it's a pink and purple raccoon. I literally have it with me too. It goes everywhere with me. And I dropped him, and I was like, hey, like, can you look out for my little raccoon? Like, just keep an eye out for a raccoon, honey, okay? And he was like, yeah, for sure. And I find it, and then we go to leave, and then on our way out, he sees a real life raccoon, like right by the trash can. And he's like, oh, remember how you asked me to keep an eye out for a raccoon? There's one right there. And I was like, no way. And this was my first time ever seeing a raccoon, because I just didn't grow up in a place with raccoons. And I was like, that's insane. And so when Opie and I were at Red Rocks, I was telling them this story, and as soon as I got done telling the story, we see a raccoon, like right in front of us. And I've been to a couple Red Rock shows, and those 2 times are the only times I've ever seen a raccoon there. Ever. And he's just chilling. He's hanging out. And then as we continue along, we're, going on this hike, and we're talking about lots of things, and it's really great. And then we reach like this little stream, and it was beautiful. And then he finds like these, it was a golden
oysters.
Golden oyster
Yeah.
mushroom. And we're like, we can't eat these, but like there's these puffball mushrooms, and if we find them, you can like cook them, and they're like so good, and they're like a little snack. And I'm like, whoa, that's super cool. But we keep walking, and we're getting close to the end of the trail, and then he looks down, and he's like, no way. And I'm like, what is it? And he's like, it's a puffball mushroom, and picks it up, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so then we go and we finish the hike, and it's incredible. And then when we're unloading this thing here, I'm like looking around at where to put it. I put it somewhere on the ground. I see little mushrooms. And then Opie comes over and is like, oh my gosh, there's little mushrooms here. Dude. And I'm like, I know, right? This is crazy. And then we just saw 222, which is a lot about like transformation and like relationship with self, or relationship with like other people, just relationships in general, while we're talking about like relationships and sex and like our own perception of things. And I want to wait for this wind.
Yeah, good move.
The wind is like, yeah, that's right.
Cheering us on. That's awesome.
Okay, it's a little less. And this morning, Opie was up at like, or sent me a voice message at like 6:40 this morning, and was like, I've just been thinking so much, like there's so much on my mind, and was sharing like some of these vulnerable shares, and was like just really in that. And then on the way over, when we were driving over here, was sharing about how he wasn't like super sure about talking about these things, but as all of these synchronicities have been coming up, it's almost affirming that this is what, or I don't know what for you, but for me it's like when these things occur, it's these magic moments you literally cannot make up.
Right.
So it's very affirming that this is what needs to be happening, this is where you're supposed to be, this is okay, and actually like dive into that. It's all right.
Hell yeah, dude. It definitely is. All those little synchronicities, like I mentioned earlier, acted as just like little validation points for like this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think I still feel that like that this is where I'm supposed to be, even without noticing the synchronicities. But it's definitely like, for whatever reason, in the past day or so, they've been going way crazy hard. And
that's when we first started talking.
They've really been sprinkling the magic.
Yeah,
on my human experience.
All the time.
That's awesome. Fuck yeah, dude. Well, my internal timer is telling me we've probably been doing this for like over an hour.
Definitely.
Is there anything else like you can think of that you might want to like dig into a little bit, or can I see your phone? Can you show me the notes again?
I am thinking about like safety in sex work with the body. So a lot of people will think that because someone's in sex work that they have like STDs and stuff like that. And some of them do because they're very unsafe with how those things go about. Some people are like not super honest with those things. But there's also people who barely even work with people like that, or who are super duper on top of those things, so they avoid all of those situations. I'm one of those people where I don't even work with people.
Right.
So it's like, that's not really a big concern, but even then with that, just speaking on sexual health in general, if you're sexually active, like get tested after every single person. And maybe it seems like, oh, wow, that's a lot. It's important because that's how you keep your body safe.
Right.
And if there's other people coming in and you're having unprotected sex, it is so important because, like, if you just get something one time, you could have that for the rest of your life. And if you're unaware of it, then you spread that too. And I've never been in that situation before, but it can be, like, really important to just be aware of those things.
Hell yeah. Damn.
But that's more of, like, a sexual topic in general, and it does relate to sex work. But yeah, sex workers are not dirty. They're usually way more thorough than people who are actually like going out to clubs and just trying to hook up all the time. Hookup culture is riddled with diseases.
Right.
But not always is sex work riddled with diseases like that. Sometimes it can be, but that's not the standard.
That is I'm glad you mentioned that. Because, like, I mean, I'm sure there's other hazards to sex work, which maybe you could speak to a little bit actually, but I feel like one of the, at least based on like what I think I know, if I were to dive into it, one of my main things, and if it was with like other people, then one of my main concerns would be like, fuck, like how am I going to protect this unit that I have the rest of my life? So what are, like, I think we kind of already hit on this, like I asked you about the cons of sex work. I think it's kind of a synonym for like hazards, or does the word hazards stimulate anything specifically for you?
So some people can be really fucking creepy. So when I am in my sex work realm, I don't use my legal name because people can use that as well to find other things about you, or to find where you live, or to find your family and stuff like that, and it can get real spooky. The same thing happens with, I don't dress the same way that I do when I'm filming stuff. Partly for safety, partly because I just don't care. But if you show up and you present as your persona online, then, other people will be aware of that.
Right.
So people can, there's dangerous aspects of it. People can follow you home. If you're in, like, a really small area, that's a lot more common. If you're in a really big area, there's so many people that there's almost safety in numbers.
Right.
So it's also like, okay, you cannot follow me home because I'm around this big group of people. Like, I'm around all these friends. But at the same time, if someone's not being safe, then, that can be a thing. If you're traveling, never say you're alone, especially if you're a girl. Just say, like, yep, my friends are over here, or my friends are waiting for me, because that can be used as information that can help target you.
Right. And I would like to personally add in that I think everybody should, like, practice some martial art, or try to get into the martial arts at some point.
I do know those things too.
Right.
So that is also very important.
Hell yeah, dude. Like, just being, like, having some kind of foundation to be able to really, like, physically defend yourself. Yeah.
Everything I do is online, and I'm really careful about what I post and where I say I'm at and when I say where I'm at as well. So, like, I will never post that I'm at a location unless it's, like, really super public, like hyper public, like it's an anime convention or something like that, then I'll say that. But I will not say that I'm at this specific restaurant at the exact time that I'm there.
Yeah.
Because, like, some people could see that and they'll be like, oh, so if I go to this restaurant, she'll be here.
Yeah.
I have not had those encounters, but I have heard stories about it.
Right. Fuck.
There's also a lot of dangers with, how people will sell sex for money. There's even more dangers in that realm. I've never done that before, and it's not something I'm interested in, but there's even more precautions that have to go into something like that.
Right. I can only imagine.
It's a lot.
Right. But also, like, it's another human being. You dig?
Exactly. And that's all I got on that stuff.
Cool. Hell yeah. I'm satisfied, bro.
Woohoo!
Are you?
Yeah, I feel
Hell
really
yeah.
good about it.
We didn't just sit on sex, but we talked about peeing, mushrooms, synchronicities, the magic of the universe. Like, what a fucking explosive conversation.
Transformation,
Yep.
power of self,
Right. Boundaries. And then what was
liberation,
liberation? Make goose stuff.
superficiality.
Yep.
These are some great keywords.
Hell yeah. I hope that the wind has not like totally fucked this thing.
If anything, you can just go back into another audio application and like do a lot of the
Make
noise
it happen.
reducing.
Word.
Because you have the audio file,
Right. Hell yeah.
so you can fuck with it however you need.
Cool. Well, B, thank you so much.
Of course.
Hell yeah.
Thank
Are
you for
you
having
cool with
me.
a hug?
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, thanks for coming out to my park with my futon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm beyond like excited to see. I mean, I guess if any, I shouldn't set expectations, but I'm really stoked to see like who this like conversation can connect with and like what they can excavate from it.
Yeah.
And if they choose to share, then dope. You know, like please do.
I'm definitely curious about the impact.
Right.
Because it's very easy to not leave a comment at all and to
Right.
just like a video or to just watch a video.
Yep.
But then to choose to interact after that almost is like sharing a part of yourself as well.
Right. Yep. Well,
Yeah,
cool.
I'm very grateful for this conversation as well as the beautiful space that we are surrounded by.
Dude,
the
yeah.
very sweet people who have passed us. We have been not bothered like at all.
besides-
Like there has been little interruptions, but they've been so sweet
Right.
and with so much interest and like care for what's happening.
Mm.
So I'm very grateful for that. Grateful for the earth, grateful for this couch, grateful for good company and great conversation as well as open minds and open ears.
Right. Hell yeah, dude. I feel like that kind of reminds me, like I've been meaning to come up with like some kind of name for my podcast, but I don't know. Nothing like is coming to me right now. I thought about just like, yeah, I don't know. If you think of anything, that's an
I
invitation.
feel like if it comes up, you'll know it.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
Like when you know, you'll know.
Right.
But for now, just go with what feels good.
Word. Cool. We did it. Cool, bro.